Outdoor Sports Podcast.
Welcome back.
Yeah.
You have a golf hat on today.
I do. I'm repping Tacoma brand.
Okay.
True Linkswear. Yeah, they're based out of Tacoma. They've
shit.
become pretty big.
I didn't know this. I need to get sponsored by these guys.
Yeah, I think they were born out of Ryan Moore's golf success.
Dang.
Yeah, so they've become pretty big though. They started with just golf footwear, I believe, and I've never had a pair of their shoes, but I know a lot of people that have them. In fact, a couple of my regular golf buddies wear them and swear by them, so apparently they're very good. But one of my buddies was wearing one of their hats a couple months back, and I was like, oh, I got to get one of those, and so here we are. Yeah, true.
Yeah,
it's
upsetting. It's upsetting when you see someone. We're both hat guys.
Oh yeah.
When you see someone wearing a hat that you like, and you're like, I don't want to be like a full-on copycat, but I also want that exact hat. Could I please just buy that? What I'd like to do is buy that hat and also give you money to pretend you never owned that hat before.
Yeah.
Do that?
Well, I went with a different logo than his, so that's the important part. It's kind of cool actually on their website, and that they should definitely sponsor us now because we're going to give them a lot of free. Not only are we giving them free pub, but it's just right out of the gate here.
Yeah.
But on their website, they actually will let you customize your hat. So they have all these different logo patches that you can put on there, and then all the different types of hats they sell, and you can just kind of mix and match. I think it costs like $5 extra over like any pre-made hat or something like that. And obviously, since we are local, it did not take very long for this hat to arrive either. So
have you ever?
Those are nice.
I had this in the pandemic. I bought my wife a card on like Etsy for something. I think it was anniversary, something like that. But I was like, I wanted it to be special, and I found like Tacoma specific cards.
Yeah.
That had like shit that we like to do, like a bar that we like to go to on it. And the guy noticed I had a Tacoma address and dropped it off in person. Like instead of putting it in that was pretty cool. I mean, it was a different time, obviously, but yeah,
that's nice. Yeah, no, I will sell stuff on eBay a lot, like footwear, hats, or like stuff that I will. Sometimes I'll just flip stuff, but other times it's like kind of cool sports gear that I just don't have any use for anymore.
Yeah.
And every now and then, because a lot of it's like Seattle sports apparel, it'll be people locally, and I'm like, man, I could just drive this over to their house if I wanted to, but that always feels weird, Yeah.
I haven't.
You don't know what'll happen.
I nearly got scammed on OfferUp recently, which is not. This is actually post grill. I'm always looking for a deal, Alex, and there's like specific things that I want to buy. I'm looking for a deal. There's this camera lens I want to buy, and I found someone in California that has it, and they're selling like a whole thing, a camera and the lens. And I was like, well, I really only want the lens, but then, I'm like, I could probably buy the camera, sell the camera, and make the lens end up only costing like a third of the price of the lens.
Sure.
We get all the way through this negotiation process, and I start to get kind of alarmed at how agreeable the person is.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, this feels like, maybe it's stolen, but like, that's not my problem. I'll buy some stolen shit. I don't care.
Yeah.
I'd like to not to know. Please don't tell me, but whatever. I'm not gonna. I finally offer like what I think is a very lowball offer, and they go, absolutely. And I go, okay, cool. I'm going to pay you through this because they're in California, and kind of like eBay has and like PayPal has, the OfferUp has like some sort of protection for the buyer, basically.
Sure.
And they go, oh, sorry, my account won't accept money from OfferUp. You'll have to pay me some of the. I was like, oh, okay. Well, I realize why you've been so agreeable, because you were going to accept whatever offer I sent you and then just take my money and never send this product at all.
That's the number one sign someone's trying to scam you, is if they want to take it all off the site.
Yeah. Well, then conversely, I will sometimes, like, if I see someone is local on eBay, I'll be like, hey, I could come pick this up. I'm in Seattle a decent amount or whatever.
Yeah.
And now they get, most of the time they're like, nah, we'll just mail it. And I get that. Like, I get not wanting to it's an odd in-person transaction. And by the time you've not put it on your local classifieds, your local Facebook marketplace or whatever, you're probably not the kind of person that wants to go meet up in a Walgreens parking lot,
Yeah, there's a reason all these sites, the eBays of the world, they take their 10%, and I'm willing to pay it. If it means I don't have to go drive to somebody or meet somebody face to face, I don't mind doing that. Yeah, it's you just run the risk of just so many bad things happening otherwise. So yeah, it's not for me, man. I will always pay to ship stuff.
Yeah. Well, why don't you tell us what we're talking about this week, and then I'll tell you about.
All
I
right.
had a couple fun experiences this weekend.
Oh yeah, that's good. Let's see here. We got a lot of things this week. It's another busy sports week with topics right up our alley. I feel like Bob Huggins has fallen on hard times, so we got to talk a little bit about that. Which we mentioned some things about Bob Huggins on a previous episode, but the hits keep coming for him. We kind of teased
the
this
hits are
topic.
done. I think, by the way, I think the hits might be done for Bob Higgins
For now. Bob
Yeah.
Huggins always seemed like one of
Bob
those
Huggins.
guys who, yeah, when he stopped coaching, it just, there's certain coaches that when they stop, you think they have nothing left to live for and their time on earth might be short from here
Yeah.
on out. He seems like he could be one of those guys. So
Sure.
let's hope for his sake that's not the case, but we'll talk a little bit about him. We teased this other topic last week. We got to get to it today. Zion Williamson. Just a lot to break down here. And
The man, the myth, the legend.
Right. It ties in with another topic we have, which is John Morant. Those two are just they're not technically doing anything wrong.
Sure.
But it's a lot to process right now. So we'll talk about that. Deion Sanders is it's a rough week to be a college coach of any time, apparently, because he's going through some things as well. We've got a funny story. I would call it a funny story. I don't know. Some people might not find it as funny, but there's kind of a funny-ish story out of Texas, and it's a obscure sport, I would say. But we'll get to that. We'll show you what that's all about, and then we'll probably get to one or two local topics. Are we talking some Mariners today, probably?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's there's not are we brimming with local sports news? I don't think so. The Mariners,
No.
It's like every week we could be like, oh, they went 500 last week. So
yeah, it's the Mariners themselves have been really awful. It's
Sure.
a good thing we're not a strictly local podcast, or it would just be depressing all the time.
Yeah.
So
it makes you wonder how these guys fill 4 hours of sports radio every day.
a lot of complaining. I listen
Yeah.
to a lot of sports radio, and rightfully so. But I was out of town this past weekend, and I started. I got back, immediately start listening to sports radio as I'm out running my errands today, and it immediately makes you depressed.
Sure.
So take some breaks from your local sports radio.
Where did you go this weekend?
We took
I know where
our
you were.
our last trip to Las Vegas before our baby arrives in a few months. So
Yeah.
this was it. This was the last point in which my wife could fly on a plane. We go to Vegas a lot. We usually go like 3 or 4 times a year.
Wow.
And we know this will be like the last time for at least a year, probably. So
Yeah.
it was nice to just go there, relax, and get it in. But it happened to coincide with the Vegas Golden Knights championship celebration. And we happened to be staying at the hotel that was the epicenter of not only their parade on Saturday night, but also where they held their rally at the end of the parade. So it was just like unexpectedly crazy there. And they were saying that the crowds outside rivaled that of New Year's Eve on the Strip, which is always a really big deal. So they just had Saturday night, we were basically prisoners of our hotel room as a result of all of this going on. And our room actually overlooked the plaza, Toshiba Plaza, which is right outside the T-Mobile Arena where the Knights play. And so we had like a bird's eye view of their entire celebration, which was actually kind of cool. Because they did some really they had some impressive pyrotechnics, and they used drones to do all these kind of like sky effects above the arena, which was basically at our window level from our room. So, even though it's not your team, so to speak, it was really cool just to like watch that celebration and see all the people that were like that excited to be there. And it was. In kind of a sobering reality of the world we live in, we're in our room. We'd gone to the pool that morning and get a knock on the door. It's, middle of the day at this point, and no reason to expect a knock on your hotel room door. And it's security, and they're coming through doing sweeps of all the rooms because, we know what has happened in Vegas in the past when crowds gather. And so they were checking to be sure that nobody had anything set up to create an incident like one that happened a few years ago at a concert in Mandalay Bay. So it was wild to kind of just be in that scene and understand what it all meant. So
yeah. So you handed over your 15 or 20 guns that you had in the hotel room, and
I said, don't mind that setup over there.
That's intense. I suppose, I mean, I haven't been to Vegas very much. You guys are these sinners and heathens that go every year.
We are,
but there's got to be, I suspect there's like hundreds of rooms overlooking this parade.
Yeah, there definitely are hundreds. There's basically 2 hotels that border the plaza or border T-Mobile Arena, and we were in one of them. And on each side of those hotels, there's hundreds, maybe, I don't know, probably not 1,000 rooms, but hundreds of rooms. And I'm sure it was a long day for their security team because these people were basically just going door to door, and they came in and made like a 30-second sweep and they were done. Just kind of checked it out and made sure everything looked good, and they were out. But it's a lot to think about in that moment when that happens. Immediately you're just like, okay, it's going to be crazy tonight. You don't even think about all the other stuff, and then they kind of remind you that like anything can happen, right?
Yeah. So we had before we even got pregnant, we didn't even own a house yet. We took our final like big vacation, knowing we're gonna try to have a kid. It's gonna fuck our lives up for many years. Yeah. So we went to New York. My wife, we took a red eye, which I now realize is fine for me. My wife is not a red eye person. I don't mind a red eye. Yeah. I can operate on very little sleep when I arrive. I very often
you sleep on planes, as you've mentioned before,
a little bit, and that's I can sleep enough on a plane to operate a full day the next day. All I need. Sure. I can't do this every day, but on one day, if I get like an hour and a half of sleep, I can pull a full day off out of that. I'm going to need to go to bed early. I'm going to need to sleep a full night the next night, but I can be a functioning human being on an hour and a half of sleep. We go to New York. My wife is like, she's tired. She sleeps horribly on the plane. And then if you've never been to New York, we are very much, when we got there, and this was our second time in New York, we're very adamant about taking the subway as many places as we can. The first trip we took, the only time we didn't use the subway was we took the wrong A train to the airport and ended up, it's like stopped in Jamaica, Queens, and we had to get a Uber to the airport. And then the second one, we were flying out of Newark, which not to be a New York airport snob, but don't do that. I would recommend not doing that.
That's a real thing in the New York area. There's so many airports to choose from. You got to really know where you're going.
Yeah, well, and especially because it was a package deal, but the flight, like the arriving flight, was a different airport than the departing flight. So. Yeah. So anyway, my wife that night, she was kind of a little sick, and then all this horrible sleep, travel stress, this, the getting on this, it's 3 a.m. or something, or not even, I don't even think it was 3 a.m. when we were, no, it was 5 a.m. when we arrived. This is how bad of a husband I am. I had my wife arrive in New York at 5 a.m. so we could we saved a couple $100 on our flights, but anyways, so we get there, and luckily the hotel was like, yeah, you guys can check in early at 6 a.m. or something like that.
That's impressive. Yeah, that early in the day to have a room ready is good.
Shout out to the Holiday Inn Express in the Lower East Side. We actually stayed there both times, and we're very much also not luxurious hotel room people. Yeah. But when we arrived, my wife decided that whole first day she's too tired. She needs to sleep. She doesn't feel good. She's there might have been some other menstrual issues going on, not to profile, just speaking medically, that's what was happening. And so we spent that whole first day in the hotel room.
Yeah.
And there's something that's kind of nice about that, but there's also a part of me that's like, well, fuck, we didn't save any money then because we paid for an extra day of this hotel, basically,
Yeah, I've learned that with flights. It's you're going to pay for it one way or another. It's either with your money financially or with your time and your energy that will be
Sure.
spent, either having a layover somewhere or having just like a tough red eye or something like that. So, I mean, that's one of the reasons we really like going to Las Vegas. It's a 90-minute flight. There are good times all throughout the day. It's
Did you?
usually
How did you feel though being in the hotel room for a whole day? Was that nice in a way?
well, we basically stayed to the resort. So like we were able to
Gotcha.
like go downstairs to the casino, go to the restaurants there and stuff. So even like there's a lot of people I know that will go to Vegas and just confine themselves to a single resort and not walk around, not
Oh
explore
wow.
things. That's not really what we do, but like on that particular day it made the most sense just because
Yeah.
we were literally surrounded by huge crowds of people outside. So but yeah, I mean, really, like that's one of the perks of going there. I mean, we go there a lot, and a lot of people are like, "You're crazy to go that much." And of course, there
Sure.
are people that are like, you always get the people that ask if you go to shows or like what you're doing while you're there. And we're not show people. We're there to like eat good food, have a really nice hotel room, and gamble a little bit. And that's
Smoke cigarettes all day
well,
indoors. That's
I
I get
mean,
it, dude.
there's one hotel on the strip, the Park MGM, that is completely smoke free. So that's
Ooh,
where we are. Actually, there's another one that's smoke free too, but this one actually has a casino, and it's the only casino that's smoke free. So
gotcha.
a real game changer. They came out of COVID. They basically used COVID to make their casino smoke free, which was kind of a genius move on their part. So
Yeah.
yeah, if you're ever going to Vegas and you really really hate smoking or hate cigarette smoke, so you can stay at the Park MGM and enjoy a resort that does not feature cigarettes of any kind. They'll actually yell at people if like
Oh wow.
because with nobody allowed to smoke in there, somebody does light up a cigarette, which happens from time to time. It really stands out, and you will hear someone start to yell at you, and security will show up and ask you to put it out or leave, basically. And most people are pretty much willing to just put it out. I've
Sure.
seen every now and then, you'll get like a drunk bro who's doesn't want to be told that he can't pull his vape out whenever he wants. And in that case, it's like, well, you're gonna get picked up and carried out if that happens. But no, it's really nice to just have that option to not have to like be surrounded by smoke the whole time.
Yeah, that's the very brief time I spent in Las Vegas. I've only been there for like 48 hours of my life.
Yeah.
I think every piece of clothing I brought into that hotel smelled like cigarettes by the time I left.
Yeah, I think it is interesting because if you think about like your everyday life, I was thinking about this while I was there, but like especially around Seattle, obviously it's a more educated city here than a lot of places in America.
Oh, you're an
And
elite. Listen to
yeah,
you.
I mean, I mean, it's true though. Like I don't feel like you see a ton of people smoking in Seattle. You do see some,
Yeah.
um, but you go to Vegas, man, and it's like all the smokers of the world congregate in Las Vegas because they know
Yeah.
it's the one place they can still do it inside.
That's how
So
fun
it's
it is to
everywhere.
smoke cigarettes indoors, is that people will fly to do it.
Fly to a place where they can go ahead and do that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I understand all the powers of addiction. I totally get it.
Sure.
If you're addicted to smoking and it's something you don't want to do, or maybe you just love doing it and you've made your choice. I mean, I like to gamble. That's a
Sure.
choice. Probably not the best decision, but it's something that we do. So I totally get it. But yeah, you just don't see a lot of it around here. And then you go there and it's like night and day, man.
Yeah. So this weekend, I had 3 shows. It started out the weekend like early last week, probably when we recorded the podcast, had 1 show, and then I got booked for a Thursday show and a Saturday show. We talked about Rockport, Washington.
We did. We looked it up. 2.5 hours away. How was that drive?
Yeah, as it turns out, Friday or a Thursday night, it's a 3.5 hour drive. We got stuck behind an asphalt truck. We're driving through that. There's a town called Darrington, and then there was a town called Oso where they had that landslide a couple years ago. Drove through those towns. It was forever. We showed up 20 minutes late to the show. We left 3 hours before the show and showed up 20 minutes late to the show. It was fine. They're like a little rowdy. I did have a fun line that I'm going to put on the internet where I was like doing okay. I wasn't having a great set. And he goes, "What's the name of your podcast?" Like, which is a very funny heckle to me because he's just like as though we're having a conversation and he's just asking. And I go, "Oh yeah, the host forgot to say the name. I have one podcast that's called Poor Sports. It's about sports, and then another one called Nobody Likes Casey McLean. That's about everybody in this room right now." and that got that got a nice laugh. So I think I'm going to put that online. And then Saturday, my days are all messed up. Friday, I opened for Josh Blue at what is it called? Like the Olympia Film Society. It's like an 850 seat theater in Olympia, roughly that. And that was awesome. I will say Josh Blue brings a posse he did the commencement speech at Evergreen College that day because he's an alum.
Deal, man. Okay.
Yeah, he's an alum apparently. I didn't know that. So he brings a posse into that green room. There was like 20 people in the green room with they were smoking a lot of medicine in there. And I don't partake in that kind of medicine. And it was like, I had to like a couple points, like step out going like, I'm either lightheaded or getting a contact high. Here's the benefit. He takes the mic out of the stand. This is why this was the choice of mic, is so you could take the mic out of the stand in his natural element.
It's
Alex
pretty great.
Akita.
I love just being able to relax now and just sit back in my chair. This is how I conduct all my meetings during the day too. I might actually start using this for meetings.
It looks like you have like a cocktail off screen right now is what it looks like.
I should, if it wasn't so early in the day. Although coming back from Vegas, I guess I'm used to drinking at all hours at this point. So
Josh Blue, I submitted a tape to be able to open for him. And the feedback I got was like, not from him, but from like the people booking the show. They were like, do you have a cleaner tape? Like, we'd prefer to send him something a little bit cleaner. And so I'm like a little bit worried about, he just was a finalist on America's Got Talent. He's been around forever. I know he's not a clean comic. I worked for him or worked with him a couple of years ago. I think I might have brought that up on the last episode where it was like the host got stuck on the mountains. And so I like was the closest person to the club, went from not being booked to performing in like 20 minutes or something like that. But I was a little bit worried. And then it's like Olympia, which is already like kind of a crunchy, sensitive town. And then he's there for the Evergreen commencement speech. Like, I'm like, this is like, the audience could not be less well engineered for my comedy. And I'll be honest.
Was it representative of like the college scene, the liberal arts college scene?
So that was my biggest fear. I was like, I'm going to fucking bomb because these people already hate me when I walk out on stage. And I'll be honest with you, like I had a very good set. Like I don't know how much of the college scene was there. And I didn't hold back. I didn't change the material. I do have a joke that I have like a, if the audience is cool version and a version that's for when they're not cool. And I did tell the they're not cool version just out of, but
what
they were
an
cool.
Indictment on the audience. If anyone from that audience is listening, they're listen. They were mostly cool. They were mostly cool. I didn't want to push my luck. They had gone down every dark path with me, and I was like, listen, I don't need to get greedy for my own ego. By the way, I'm worried I've called him Josh Wolf. It's Josh Blue. You've been good.
Okay, good. Yeah. I've also worked with Josh Wolf, so.
Okay. Yeah. So how was this? I'm curious to know how this was set up. Was this like standard comedy club 2-drink minimum, or was this like more upscale? Because you said it was like an arts something.
It was a full-on theater. It was like an 850 seat. It would be like the Moore or something like that. Basically
right.
That
But do they enforce drinking on these people, or is it just if you want to get a drink, we have them available?
No. So the big deal, the big difference. So theater typically there's no drink minimum because it would be insane to and there's no like table service or anything like that.
Nuts. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and
so
also
you did well in a crowd that wasn't even properly lubed up.
Listen, that is not to say they weren't lubed. These folks were lubed, I think, but they didn't.
There's a lot of bars in downtown Olympia,
sure.
So I can see how they would find a place and make their way over there.
Yeah, and the beer lines were long, is my understanding.
Every time I've been to a show in a theater, there's never been like those types of theaters. None of them have ever been built to accommodate a crowd that wants to drink. It doesn't matter what theater in what city, anywhere. They always have long lines at those things.
The only place I will say that I think really gears up for that I've been to is the Chalet Theater in Enumclaw, because I went there. I hosted for Jubal, then Jubal Flag, now Jubal Fresh out there. And by the way, his crowd finds a way to get lubed. I don't know if they're lubing in the parking lot or if they're doing all their lubing in captivity, but They're lubed. By the time he went on stage, it was a wild drunk crowd. Like a guy approached the stage. Jubal like called that guy's daughter on the phone. It was a wild experience. But yeah, so Josh Blue's crowd was great. I will say I did part of my duties that night were to go buy like the contract rider items. And so I bought all the things on his list, and then I bought myself 2 beers. And I was like, typically he has a little bit of an entourage in this area because he's got local ties. I was like, I'll try to hide the beers as best I can, my beers, because I know he's got, and literally we're minutes in and someone's drinking one of my beers. And I was like, God damn it. Like, but I also,
is this like a rookie hazing type thing that people do in comedy? It sounds like rookie hazing.
No, this was just basically he has a bunch of stuff brought to the green room so his friends can enjoy themselves. It's like a party in the green room, basically. And part of that is to buy some beer for that party, but there's only one fridge. So I just like throw it in, and I'm not going to go to the guy that sold 850 tickets and go, hey man, that was my IPA. Can you tell that lady to not drink my other IPA? I got reimbursed for the whole thing anyway. It's not like, I'm not trying to be a dickhead about it.
It's not like when the NBA team sends the first round draft pick to McDonald's to buy
food
for the whole team or anything like that.
Yeah, I would say Josh Blue there was no like affection lost or gained from any of this. It was just, This is part of the process is he gets shit brought to the thing, so he doesn't have to go grocery shopping for himself. He gets to enjoy himself at the gig. It's a smart move. I don't have a contract rider, but if I did, it would be pretty simple like that. He had like a veggie tray and like a 6-pack of Budweiser. Bud Heavy, and then
you don't see a lot of people going with the Bud Heavy.
Yeah, by the way, some heavies and lights, other additional heavies and lights made it into the green room. And like I said, there were like 20 people, and there's like a 40 stairs to get up to the green room from the stage level.
Yeah.
And they're like hanging on these stairs, watching him perform. It was really cool. They watched me also, and I got a lot of compliments and then no Instagram follows, I will say. But
is that what you're looking for out of a show? Just someone to like follow you on Instagram? On
pretty much. That's how I judge if it went well or not, and it's which means it mostly goes poorly. And then I did have this moment when I got off stage because I just have a lot of shit going on. I'm like going out to sell merch. I have to show him the light, which in comedy is just me telling him it's like it's close to time to get off stage.
Right.
So I set up his merch. I give him the light, but after I got off stage, I had to run upstairs and do something like really quick. I think it was grab my merch or something like that. And you may recall, loyal listeners may recall, I am just over a week removed from a significant meniscus tear.
That's right. Stairs aren't good for you, man.
I had so much adrenaline pumping. I'm like 20. I'm running 20. I'm 20 stairs into running up the stairs, and I go, "What the fuck are you doing? Like, this is the stupidest." And I caught myself and just walked the rest of it. But it's crazy about the stage adrenaline, how like it will take you from basically having the flu to healthy for the 30 minutes you're on stage. Sure. In this case, it took my knees from injured to I'm literally sprinting up some stairs. They were very sore the next day, but it was a lot of walking, a lot of carrying shit back and forth from the green room, etc. So anyway, that was cool. And then the next day I went to Ellensburg with my friend Josh Firestein. All Joshes. I was working with all Joshes. I went to like a secret society private club, like 7 people. One guy was literally retired Space Force. Wow. I know. And he looked like a guy who would play an astronaut on like Law and Order SVU.
Who even had time to already retire from the space?
Yeah, I'm sure
like a few years old.
I think he transferred in from a different department. Yeah.
He's a transfer from Army.
Yeah, one of those. And that was fun. It was cool. What was very funny was my wife went to Central, so I've been to Ellensburg a lot. For a year and a half, I was going like every weekend. I've probably been there 75 times or something like that.
Have we talked about the TAV? Have we talked about the TAV on this podcast?
No, but I got kicked out of the TAV once.
Okay, we definitely have not talked about the TAV. What
Okay.
the hell happened? How'd you... Okay, wait. Maybe finish your other story first.
Yeah, well, that's it. Basically, I mean, it was like that show was like strange. They were, I can't tell, I couldn't tell if they loved me or hated me. It was in an old place called the Starlight, which is right. It's called the Pearl Pearl Bar and Grill, something like that. It's a really cool. Like the guy that owns it is a really sharp dude. Great drinks. We were talking about he gave me a free Blanton's pour because I identified that there was a Blanton's. I was like, how much is that Blanton's? And he's like, listen, the fact that you even know what that is, you could have one for free. And I was like, wow, that's very nice of you.
Did he ever tell you how much it was, though?
No, this is why I know it's the Illuminati, is if they don't tell you the price,
it's pricey. Yeah. When I was in Vegas, there was a couple restaurants that I usually get like an old fashioned if we're out drinking somewhere or having dinner somewhere nice. And they used Buffalo Trace. Granted, it was just basic Buffalo Trace, but for an old fashioned, that's a very decent whiskey for an old fashioned. It's got the right flavor for it. It's got the sweetness for it. And I was very impressed that that was actually what they were using as kind of like their base level whiskey for an old fashioned. So you've
spent a lot of time in dive bars. I can tell by the fact that you're like Buffalo Trace. That's like top shelf whiskey.
They were treating it as like a whiskey, right? Which it is based on price, but on flavor, it's much better than your typical I mean, usually you get whiskey, it tastes like it's got gasoline in it. I mean, it's just terrible. So the fact that they were using that as their bottom shelf was nice. It was a nice change.
Yeah. So the Tav is actually right next to this bar that I like significantly more now, called the Frontier, which is like an Ellensburg or Kittitas County locals only bar. When you walk in, it's like the classic, like the karaoke or the jukebox screeches to a halt and everyone turns to see why the fuck these outsiders are in here.
I've seen the Frontier. I've never been inside it, but I've been to the Tav a bunch. So
it's cool. They have a bunch of different tap handles, or at least this is like my memory from years ago, and they serve every beer in a mason jar, which is fun. It's relatively inexpensive. So the Tav, I went there. I took my mom. My mom came to Ellensburg for some reason. I was out there with my wife. We go to the Tav. We eat food. I'm paying for it. We eat food.
If you're paying for a meal for other people, great place to go.
Sure.
It's very cheap. The Tav is very inexpensive.
Ellensburg overall is just very inexpensive compared to what we're used to. But so I go there, and it's like, it's a college bar. It's a classic college bar where, like, if you're a hot lady, you get great service, and if you're a dude, you better be tipping well, because otherwise they are going to ignore you. I go in, they don't recognize me at all. We order, like, again, 3 full meals, multiple rounds of drinks. I go up to pay my tab, and there's a long line, and they're moving slow. I wait in line for, not exaggerating, like 15 minutes. I get to the front of this line, and I go, hey, man, I want to pay my tab. And the guy goes, this isn't the tab line, dude. You got to go to the other line. He points to the end of the bar, and I'm like, are you serious? I can't. And he's like, yeah, it's over there. So I go to the tab line, and I wait for, like, genuinely another full 10 minutes. I get to the front of the line. He takes my card, swipes it. I see the receipt come out. He walks away. And I'm waiting there. My fucking tab has been run for another full 10 minutes. This has now become a 35-minute process to pay my tab. And this dude he's not giving me a moment of attention, and I'm frustrated, and my pride, I'm like, I gotta be fucking impressive in front of my wife. My mom is here. This guy's disrespecting us. I'm also a little bit drunk. And I walk behind the bar and grab my receipt. And the guy goes, he's like, what the fuck are you doing? I go, I've been waiting here for fucking 35 minutes. We're screaming at each other. And I take the receipt, and my tip, I still tipped him $1, which is embarrassing because you have a backbone, Casey. But on the tip line, I wrote $1 and don't be a dick. And then we left. And he was like, get the fuck out of here. Whatever. He was screaming at us. And so I'm not like 86th in the way that, like, they have a picture to tell me to, like, this guy can't ever come back. But I did get kicked out one time.
Wow. Look at you. Just full Karen mode right there.
Hey, man.
You had a legit case. I'd say you have a legit case. The thing about every college bar, having spent time in college bars, whether at UW or just like, stopping in at the Tav or something, you're never going to get good service. That's a given. I've only been to the Tav like during the day around lunchtime when it's pretty empty. And it's good fried food. It's good bar food.
Sure.
For very cheap price. If it's not busy there, it's an easy place to stop in, have a quick meal, and bounce. But if you're going to a college bar when it's packed, it's a miserable experience. It doesn't matter where you're at.
This was like 6 p.m. So it was like not peak time. It was getting busy.
Yeah.
Like we were exiting before it got fully busy.
Sure.
But still, yeah, I get what you're saying. But a 35 minutes remains ridiculous. Like,
yeah, I mean, no one ever. Look, I'm not trying to knock the industry, but no one ever grows up hoping that one day they have a career at a college bar.
Sure.
You know, like no one, like even if you want to get into the food service industry, you're like, I hope I work at a Michelin star restaurant or the coolest dive bar in town, not the one where kids barely scrape together their cash to pay for their couple beers, you know, like that. So you're never going to get the best service. It's always tough, especially if it's busy. But you both have a case. I understand why he was pissed at you. You had a right to be mad.
So, but his wrong, we should have fought. His wrong occurred first, I think. I escalated it, no doubt, and I have no regrets about escalating it. But anyways, the dude that owns this place is a former TAV bartender, so I got to tell him that story, and he was like, oh yeah, that sounds right. And he tried to figure out, if we could figure like exactly who the person was, and we did not come to a conclusion because I didn't know. That was like I never went there again after that. That was like I boycotted it, and I took all my business to the Frontier, and Wings Central was the other place that we would frequent quite a bit.
Wings Central was a big deal in Ellensburg.
I liked it, dude.
It's kind of big, and it stands out. Yeah, you can see that one from the freeway too, can't you?
I think it's Roadhouse that you can see from the freeway.
Yeah, but I mean, Ellensburg it's a college town. So what do you expect? You can't go there expecting much more than a college town can deliver, and it is a true college town too. It is. It's an uptick above Pullman, let's be honest, but it's close, very close.
The biggest uptick it's very similar to Pullman in that like the politics and the population both drastically change during the school year, right? Like it's everybody that like when you walk into the Frontier, you're like, oh, this is like everybody in here is like, you better not be Jewish, you know? I'm like, damn, you're like I didn't realize you guys were anti-white in here even. Like it's a wild place. It's not actually like that. I like the Frontier, but it's like country music and beat up pool tables. It's like a true country dive bar, like a small town dive bar where the TAV is trying to be something that's, you know, like attractive to, honestly, probably like 19-year-old college girls. If we're
they don't want to see us coming in there.
Yeah, there's no. By the way, I'd like to point out 19. None of us even batted an eye at the idea of 19-year-old college girls getting.
I think in a town like Ellensburg, you can get away with it.
Sure,
you can get away. I'm sure people have gotten away with it.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure everyone's making fake IDs or something like that. I'm sure there's plenty of that there. All right, I think we should probably eventually talk about sports because we're nearly 40 minutes in, and I do have a hard out, as they say in show business.
Today. Okay, where do you want to start today? We've got so many. We've talked about the topics already. Now it's just where do we go from here?
Yeah, I want to start with Ja Morant because it's been a frequent topic on this podcast. Ja Morant gets in trouble for he's at a strip club at 5 a.m. or whatever in Denver, dancing with a gun,
slow dancing with a gun.
Yes, he's making sweet love to a gun on Instagram Live, and it's many people will point out, myself included, that nothing that he did was illegal. And another thing that I've had a problem with is this like kind of selective application of gun outrage, right? Like, so for example, I mean, and this is I hope this doesn't open up a huge can of worms, but like Hunter Biden just got a plea deal on a felony gun charge, doing everything, going like defrauding the steps that would allow people to have a gun, right? What Ja Morant did wasn't technically illegal, unless there might be a law against bringing it into a strip club in Colorado. I don't know what the laws are there, but it wasn't what he did wasn't federally illegal. Right. He did not commit a felony
outside of just flashing his guns on Instagram Live frequently, right. Which it's not the most bright thing you can do when you're a public figure.
But it's even only just not a bright thing to do if you're a guy who knows there's a penalty coming for it, which we can all agree on. If you know there's a penalty for it, don't do it.
Right. I mean, this is the argument people often make with anything that people do that has consequences, right? Like whether it's legal or not, consequences have actions.
Sure.
And in John Morant's case, the NBA has decided to suspend him for the first 25 games of next season for all of his recent actions involving guns and Instagram. and I think
and that's the thing that happened that preceded this was so there's been a lot of things that are like alleged, right? And I'm trying to get my quotes into the screen. There's a lot of things that are alleged that make this all seem like a pattern of behavior that's a lot worse than just that. And that stuff is like, all of that stuff sounds significantly worse than the things they actually have him on. This feels a little bit like when you get Al Capone for tax evasion, where it's like, that stuff sounds really bad, and if it's true, that stuff seems not only illegal but suspendable, right? But this thing, he's like on Instagram Live playing with maybe a toy gun, they say, in his friend. By the way, worst friends in the world. Like your buddy's dancing with a gun, and you throw on Instagram Live. You cost the guy probably $30 million between salary and endorsement deals.
He needs his friends to start signing waivers. No phones around him. No.
He needs to give him Jeter baskets, dude. He's got to give him Jeter baskets. Just herpes and a gift bag.
I mean, he's got a stronger relationship with his gun than most people have with other people. So you have to respect his love of guns, but he's just doing a lot of dumb shit. And I understand. Look, I know that you're on the side of he's done nothing wrong. We shouldn't be punishing him. I mean, punish him in the court of public opinion if you want, but not an official punishment of a suspension, a significant suspension. But I get why the NBA is doing this. I don't know if I totally agree with it, but I get it.
Yeah, I get why they would want to. I can get why they'd love to suspend guys for doing a variety of things that look bad for the league. To me, this one is like, and by the way, like it does seem like a bad pattern of behavior. Realistically, do I think this is probably potentially good for John Morant to have? The guy needs a wake-up call. I feel like this is eventually potentially going to escalate into something worse.
Yeah, he might start fucking the gun. We don't know.
He probably already has. We don't know. I certainly understand how this is like, but I just don't know that this is the NBA's place. And I get like they care about their image, but it's like I don't know. I guess it starts to fall into a gray area for me.
I think it goes a little deeper than that with the NBA. I think the NBA is very afraid of what happened in the early 2000s, the post-Jordan era, where you had the Jailblazers, where the NBA really took a bad rap in the press for a lot of players who were doing stupid things out in public, and they didn't have Jordan there anymore to kind of carry the torch for the entire league, right? They had this period where the league really fell on hard times because they had no faces of the NBA, and the faces of the NBA that they did have were doing stupid stuff, right? So it just made the whole league look bad. And we're entering this era again where there's kind of a changing of the guard as far as the people who are the faces of the NBA. Steph Curry, LeBron James, guys like that are getting close to the end of their careers. Kevin Durant's another one. A lot of these guys that have kind of held up the NBA over the last decade or two. And we're kind of entering into this new phase of who's the new face of the NBA. And John Morant clearly has emerged in the past couple seasons as being one of those guys. He's got a signature sneaker with Nike. He's been a poster child for the NBA. And I think they want him to be one of those guys that continues to be a face of the NBA. And I think that's why they're probably suspending him like this, is because they, like you said, it's good that he's getting this wake up call, and they probably want to wake him up and just be like, hey, we need you to be, you're our show pony, man. We're trotting you out there as one of the leaders of this league. And if you're going to be that, that means you have to, we don't really care what you do behind the scenes. If people don't see what you're doing, fine. But we can't have them seeing you acting like an idiot if we're going to prop you up like this. And so I think the NBA is probably just reacting to something that's happened in their past, because we know how bad it was 20 to 25 years ago when Jordan retired. And I'm sure they don't want to have that happen again. The NBA for the last 5 to 10 years or so has been at like an all-time high as far as just fan interest. I mean, I know it's not the case here where we don't have a team, but there's just been a ton of hype around the NBA for the past decade, and they don't want to see that momentum dropped. And John Morant is really trying to help them lose some of that momentum by being stupid. So I think they just want to try and turn him around while he's still young enough to still have, a 15, 20-year NBA career that thrives from here.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess, I certainly understand that. I think there's a chance, like a strong chance, that this could be the best thing for all parties involved. It feels a little bit overreaching to me. And that's like, again, but let's talk about, there's another guy that, to some people's opinion, has done nothing wrong. Can you tell me, give me the details on the Zion Williamson story, if you would?
Okay. I'm going to try to, I'll give the Cliff Notes version, basically. Zion he's got a woman pregnant. Fine. Good for Zion.
Do each of us do also.
Yeah,
each of us do also.
Yeah.
He's qualified to do a podcast. I'll tell you that much.
We're all going to be dads together. You, me, Zion. Maybe we can start a club or something.
One of us has to run a daycare service and then also be Eddie Murphy.
Daddy daycare.
That was a Daddy Daycare reference.
I totally understand now. Having seen Daddy Daycare when it came out, I understand why they did that, because daycare is not cheap, as it turns out. And those guys were making hand over fist, I assume, being the daycare service for the whole neighborhood. Okay. Zion can run the daycare. He's the money man. We know that. And
he's huge. He can wrap a lot of kids in his arms.
He's on his way to being the next Oliver Miller. So Zion gets a woman pregnant, which is great. Congrats, Zion. Congrats to your soon-to-be baby mama as well. The whole family, I'm sure, is happy. However, there are a couple women out there who are not happy about this, because Zion was apparently in some sort of relationship with them as well at the same time that he's going and knocking this woman up. You wouldn't expect that from an NBA player. It's
unheard of. I've never heard of such a thing.
One of the women who's very upset with him happens to be a porn star. I don't know if she's really a star. I don't know this one.
You didn't check the catalog?
I would own up and say if I knew who she was, I would let you know. I don't know this one, but my game has fallen off. I know the ones from 15, 20 years ago.
That's like me in baseball.
Yeah. It's like when we do the home run game. We're really good with players from the 90s and 2000s. Today's player is a little bit tougher.
Yeah.
Same goes for porn. You give me somebody from like 15 years ago, I'm like, yes, I know that. I know that ass. So this porn star, Mariah Mills, the article I read actually listed her as a former porn star, which is depressing, but it listed her as a former porn star and current OnlyFans performer, which aren't they all currently on OnlyFans?
Real quick, I'm gonna keep my headphones on. I'm gonna grab another can of this cold brew. Keep talking. I will hear you. I'm just gonna be slightly away from the.
You need more to drink to process.
Yes, I can't handle it without more caffeine.
Okay, so this former porn star, Mariah Mills, she is threatening to leak the alleged Zion Williamson sex tapes because apparently they decided to film, just like John Morant, they get in trouble with the camera.
It's always a problem.
This is, I understand why you would film such things as long
you
as
do. You do understand that.
I mean, I understand it could be for your future pleasure. However, if you don't trust the person that you're
leak the tapes, leak the Alex tapes, okay?
I don't think
Matt Holt, leak the tapes.
If there were tapes, they wouldn't be with Matt Holt.
They could be of Matt Holt.
Okay. Okay. So this woman is threatening to leak a bunch of sex tapes of Zion because she's mad that he knocked up another woman while they were apparently in a relationship. And I understand how you could be upset if you think you are in a relationship with somebody and they turn around and prove to you that that is not the case, or at least not the case that you thought. So I get why she's upset, but she's getting a little wild here, she's basically trying to torpedo his whole career.
Sure.
She wants Zion to be traded by the New Orleans Pelicans for some reason. I mean, I think a lot of Pelicans fans would agree with her on that, but I don't think the reason they want him traded is because he was two-timing them. I think they just want a return on their investments.
In fact, this might be the most productive he's been in the last couple of years.
He's had a rough start to his career. It has not been good. I have a Zion story that I'll tell in a minute, but things have not gone well for him today.
Release the tapes, Zion, the Alex tapes. Release the Alex tapes.
So she's very upset. She's been calling him all sorts of names on social media. This story, she's been so vocal that this story has been picked up by numerous media outlets, not just the shitty ones like TMZ, but like actual news outlets have been like forced to report on this because it's becoming a subject as like the Pelicans consider whether they want to trade him this offseason. The guy barely plays. He's had all sorts of injuries. He's had weight issues so far. And now he's already. I can't imagine a man with weight issues is going to excel by becoming a dad. There's a term for that. It's dad bod. You and I both know it. And that's, I don't know what the future holds for Zion, but it could be him having sex with another woman being on the internet very quickly.
Yeah,
That's where we're at. That's where we're at.
Yeah, that's. I mean, we can all just hope that it does come out and that we get to see it because, you know.
Yes,
Do you remember when? What's your favorite ESPN body issue? Because mine is the Prince Fielder one. You know what I mean? That one was the listen. A lot of beautiful women and attractive men, but seeing Prince Fielder's like incredibly muscular thighs naked, I couldn't believe it. He's the man's thighs were like you could. A cow would be lucky to have those thighs. You know what I mean? To be able to cut a steak out of those thighs. This is weird, but
yeah, no, I totally get it. You don't understand what goes into. All you see is the baggy jersey and the big body, and you assume that's a fat man under there. And
yeah,
it's true. He is fat, but
he's got fat
a lot
on
of
him.
Muscle. Yeah, he's got a lot of muscle underneath.
Like it has to be able to squat like 900 pounds, and then and yeah, it was and so to see. In action. And then you see the behind the scenes of the body issue and you're like, wow, this is like, not just, this guy's very athletic. You lose.
You really just want to see the Zion tapes to see what this man's body looks like.
I say cut her out. Cut her out of the video. Yeah. Let's just see. Scientific makes it sound a little eugenics-y for my taste. It's more from an art and skill perspective is what I'd like to see. Okay,
you want the technique is what you're looking for.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for.
I would have to imagine now. Usually, if like a sex tape leaks, it's like two people who know how to have sex and not much else. But in this instance, one of the people is a porn star, so I assume she was putting on a good performance
on the top of their game. Do you remember? Because this is the thing. Do you remember early in his career, Zion Williamson blew out a shoe? I believe it was when he was at Duke.
He was at Duke. Yeah,
he blew out a shoe. Yeah. The shoe could not contain his mass.
It wasn't. I believe they were the Paul George signature sneakers. Maybe the second year of the Paul George signature sneakers, and it did not help sales of that shoe.
And
that shoe blew out. Yeah, it
and
really
then
kind of torpedoed that shoe.
And then Zion Williamson finds a reinforced shoe, and he hasn't had those same problems. And I wonder if a porn star. Listen, I don't want to assume any anatomical traits of Zion Williamson, but. The man is a very large man, and I think that it's possible that this could be his reinforced shoe. And I would like to see him at full speed in the best setting possible. Is all I'm saying. Release the tapes, lady. Release the tapes.
I mean, yeah, she's threatening to release these tapes or whatever. I mean, like, I don't understand what it would do to hurt him. Like, if anything, it'd be like, hey, here's unless he's just really embarrassing while having sex or something.
What if he's? My hope is that he's saying something embarrassing. I don't care. I actually kind of, frankly, like if we're stepping away from comedy, I do find the like men get body shamed and we're just like, yeah, it's cool. Like small dick, balding, fucking, you're too short for me. Like if men said that stuff publicly about women in Seattle, especially, we'd be ostracized.
That's true. I've had all those things said about me.
Yeah, so. I've said it about you this week behind your back. It's
yeah, I get it. Yeah, we don't want our sex tapes.
Release the tapes.
But if you're Zion and you're a good looking dude or whatever, and you know how to have sex, then yeah, I mean, I'd be like, go ahead. Feel free. This could be his Kardashian moment. This could be his Kim Kardashian moment. And this porn star, Mariah Mills, could be his Ray J. Just release these things, launch his career into the stratosphere. And who knows, if basketball doesn't work out for him, which it may not, the way things are going, maybe he has a future in adult film. We don't know.
It is kind of fun, the era that we live in, even though you and I don't have direct exposure to the NBA very often, but we do live in this time where there's like these, and I hate to, I don't really know how to describe them except for like groupie whores. You know what I mean? But they come out.
That's the technical term. Yeah,
yeah, that's the politically correct term. But these women that will and like I don't even mean whore. Like whore is more of a medical definition in this case, because it'll be these women that just like kind of gravitate towards like a basketball team. And then there was that lady a couple of years ago that was talking about she banged like half the Suns roster.
The throat cup. That was
that was also Nancy Reagan's nickname, by the way. But we just get to enjoy this information that you would have had to, the amount of people you would have had to know to actually get that information many years ago. I mean, I'm sure these women were snuffed out years ago, and now we get this information publicly on a podcast, and we get to find out these incredible, and it's also amazing that more of these guys don't get caught up in these kinds of problems, you know?
Yeah, I mean, you really have to trust the people you're messing around with, I guess. It's the lesson that the NBA teaches us. Is like,
I think everyone we got to get Derek Jeter to do a symposium for all young professional athletes.
That whole 30 for 30 on Jeter, I didn't watch it, but if the entire thing wasn't devoted to his sexual escapades and the gift baskets he handed out, then it was a waste of everyone's time. No one cares about his baseball career. No, Zion, I'm sure he'll be fine in the end. My quick Zion story, during COVID, I had a buddy go to Target one day, and he's like, hey, they got basketball cards here. I'm going to buy some. And you know what? I was very bored. Target, this was like when Target and the grocery store were the only places you could go, right?
Yeah.
I collected sports cards as a kid, so I go get some cards myself. I open a pack. I pull out this very rare Zion Williamson rookie card, which I didn't know how much it was worth until I checked eBay. It was worth around $8,000.
Holy shit.
Yeah, like not the kind of cards you're pulling as a kid, right? As a kid, you're like, I got a Griffey, it's worth $150. You happiest day of your life. Now I got this $8,000 card. I didn't know what to do with it. There's all these grading services out there that will grade your cards for you. So you send in a card, they tell you if it's got any imperfections, they assign it a score. Obviously, the higher the score, the better. So I pay, I don't know, $100 to $200 to have this card graded, sent out and graded, knowing that if it gets a good grade, I'm going to be able to resell it for a lot of money. I don't give a shit about the card. I was trying to kill some time during COVID. So I have this thing sent out. It returns to me, very good score. I get a 9.5 out of 10, which is basically perfect condition. I go on eBay to sell the card, and I managed to sell it for about, I think the final price I took was around like $4,500.
Gotcha.
That I sold it for, which paid for part of my house. I'm not going to lie. But that money came in handy because I basically sold it around the time we were about to buy this house.
That's lucky.
And I just checked the other day out of curiosity with all this Zion news going. I wanted to see what the recent sales of this exact card were, which there are apparently only a few. This is one of those cards that a lot of cards now, they're serial numbered. They tell you exactly how many are out in production in the world.
Right.
This was not serial numbered, but it was kind of like a mystery how many were made, but less than 50 is kind of the estimate that people had. So I checked, and recently the most recent sale was around like $800. So ooh. I feel amazing because it's one of those things at the time you're like, well, if he turns into the next Michael Jordan, then years down the line, this thing could be worth the cost of a house by itself. Right? Yeah. And so I took a little bit of risk, but I knew we needed that money for this house, and it came in handy. So
that's very nice.
Thank you, Zion. I will always have that kinship with Zion Williamson because of this. Not the kind of kinship that Mariah Mills has with him, but I have probably more affection for him now than Mariah does. So that's
to some degree, you could give the credit for having your child to Zion Williamson.
That's true.
In some ways, awesome. He's fathered at least 2 children.
And he's probably well on his way to more. I mean, he's a young man. He's only, 22 maybe?
Yeah.
He's got plenty of time.
Yeah. Should we talk about, I want to talk about Deion Sanders, and then I think we got a couple other topics before we get into our local and home run game.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. You have to sum this. I've heard that he's having some medical issues, but I really don't know anything about it outside of headlines.
So Deion Sanders got a couple toes removed last year, and I want to say this is like a, hold on, I think he had he's got a circulation issue, and what I'd like to figure out is what the cause is. I know he's got a circulation issue. He had to have, I want to say it might have been diabetes, but that might just be like a stereotype of why people get their extremities removed. But the biggest thing I want to talk about is this is just one of these things that really, to me, signifies the difference between professional athletes, professional sports people, period, and us, the average citizens. Deion Sanders gets a couple toes removed, and now he's the coach at Colorado. There's a lot of hype around the program for the first time in I think maybe the history of the University of Colorado. There's this much hype. He's got a lot of controversy. Players are leaving. The spring game is sold out. It's televised on ESPN. It's and I think maybe even his son's going to be like. There's a lot of shit going on, and now he's facing another challenge with this foot. And he's like, I want to get. He's like, I might have to get my foot amputated, and I want to get it done before the season so I don't have to miss a lot of time. To me, this harkens back.
That's a dedicated coach.
That's what I'm saying. This harkens back to, because I've heard a lot of these. Sometimes people question how much toxicity is involved in male competitiveness. And do you remember the story many years ago? I mean, even before our time, I think, as sports fans probably, but Ronnie Lott destroys a finger, breaks a finger. He can have a surgical repair, and he'll miss like maybe 6 to 8 weeks.
Yeah,
he could have it amputated, and he could play the next week.
Yeah.
This man, for a 6 week difference in playing time, had his finger amputated. I think partially amputated, but still had an extremity amputated so he could come back earlier. And this is what this kind of reminds me of. Maybe this is something that there's less of a. It's more of a when than an if thing, where I think with Ronnie Lott, he could have kept the finger. But it's I will never, the Ronnie Lott story to me is really an example of how I will never underestimate how some men will, and not me, by the way, but how some men will sacrifice everything to be a champion, to feel like a champion.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. I understand why someone would do that. The Ronnie Lott story is kind of an extreme example. I think you're probably on the right track with Deion. It's probably, once they start kind of like hacking away, they've taken a couple toes already. That's never a good start. So, I mean, he probably has had medical advice that says, hey, at some point in time, you might lose this foot. And so he's probably thinking, might as well do it now so I can get back out there and coach this team. Yeah, it sucks. That sucks, man. I mean, it's not funny, but it's kind of interesting that he was one of the fastest football players and baseball players ever, one of the greatest athletes of his entire era, because he was a two-sport star, and now he might not be able to like ever run again.
Yeah, you're talking like the leanest. Like, this dude is the epitome of speed. I believe, like, up until a couple years ago, held the official combine record for fastest 40 time.
Yeah. Just
one of the fastest human beings in the history of the earth. And, now he's... And it's also, like, not a guy who's in bad shape now. It's not a guy who... Apparently, this is something there's a family history of. I actually can't find anything that says it's diabetes on a cursory look. But, yeah, it's just... I mean, it's...
it's unfortunate.
It really comes for us all, ultimately,
Well, hopefully we're not all losing feet at the end.
Nah, there's just going to be a pile of poor sports podcast host limbs as the
Jesus, like the Temple of Doom over here.
Yeah.
What's interesting to me? It's like in the 90s, like Deion Sanders was like the unquestioned fastest man in sports, right?
Sure.
Baseball, football, didn't matter. Now it's like in sports, especially in the NFL, there's like a dozen guys who could be labeled like fastest man in the NFL.
Sure.
And in baseball, it's like you have like a dozen guys who could be labeled the hardest thrower. Like they top each other on like a daily basis, right? A guy who can throw 104, throws the fastest pitch one day, and then the next day somebody else tops him. And it's like you would never know. No one could you could ask a crowd of 1,000 baseball fans, and they'd probably say 50 different names of people who they thought were the hardest throwers in baseball. But back in the day, when we were growing up in the 90s, it's like you knew Deion Sanders was the fastest man in football. You knew Nolan Ryan was the hardest thrower in baseball. There was no questioning any of these things. Like maybe you could make an argument for like Randy Johnson or Roger Clemens or something. But in general, these things were unquestioned. And now it's like we've put such a priority on like speed and power in sports that everybody kind of reaches that same level. No one stands out anymore.
Yeah, it's similarly like do you remember, I mean, obviously you're going to remember this, but the like back and forth between then CenturyLink Field and Arrowhead Stadium.
Oh, loudest stadium, yeah.
Yeah, and it was like, I mean, they're both really fucking loud. Can we just enjoy the fact that they're both like remarkably loud stadiums? Do we have to do this? Like, I mean, and by the way, the Chiefs and the Seahawks both have experienced a bunch of success since then. So
also, no one out there is like, you know who I want to hang out with? The loudest fan. That's who I want to hang out with. Like,
that's true.
I don't. That's the last person I want to hang out with.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that is funny because you're like, oh man, that kind of makes me not want to go to games. Actually,
yeah,
I gotta be one of these guys wearing like earplugs at the stadium.
You don't want to be the adult with the baby earmuffs on. That's
man, I am gonna be.
That's
that
a bad
too.
luck.
Yeah,
I've been to a lot of Seahawks games. Very loud. You might be the loudest fans in football, but
maybe
as it turns out, you're not. Sorry.
Okay, and then before there's a great story that you brought to my attention this morning. But Bob Huggins, who we talked about a couple weeks ago, who used an anti-gay slur, he was given a $1 million pay cut by University of West Virginia University, WVU, and he was apparently there was some part of that he also had his contract altered, so it was kind of like a 1-year guarantee. There was kind of an idea that this was very likely going to be his last year there anyway, at the kind of the request of the behest of the university. And then he gets caught drunk driving, 0.21 blood alcohol content. There's a thing about this. Yeah, there's a thing about this that's interesting to me always. So he's got a past DUI arrest when he was a coach at Cincinnati. The thing that's interesting to me is I'm 37 years old, okay? I've taken, not administered by a police officer, but I have taken a breathalyzer, like as a, when you're trying to get the high score at a party. I had one of those. So I think my brother got it for me as like a gag gift or protection. I don't know. Yeah. There's part of me though that
we would all use it as a joke.
There's times when you're drinking and you take one of those and you're like, it's amazing that I could still have another drink and be able to drive. Sometimes I feel that, and then at different periods of my life I've been drinking more and I'm like, oh, I'm like barely past base sobriety and I'm over the legal limit.
Yeah.
But either way, I know the amount of drinks. Like, you don't have to be great at math. And then when you get to the point where it's 0.21 means that like over the course of a couple hours, you had like 9 drinks or 10 drinks or something like that.
Yeah. You would have to think that Bob Huggins in Morgantown, West Virginia can probably get away with almost anything. It's a true college town. He grew up there. He's an alum of West Virginia. Now he's like the legendary basketball coach. I would imagine that he's driven drunk before. And
he's been arrested for it.
Well, no, I mean, I'm saying like in recent years, he's probably been pulled over before and let go. But this was one that was probably like, obviously he blew a 0.21. A lot of times the official tests are not administered until hours after you've been initially pulled over because they got to take you in, give you your official test, and then book you. So we don't know exactly when this number came about, but clearly he had a ton to drink to the point that they just couldn't bat it. Like they couldn't turn a blind eye to what had happened here. They had to arrest him. They had to take him in.
Yeah.
And there's probably been other times where he was a little bit more fortunate, I would imagine.
Yeah, well, I suspect there's like, it's possible that if that's happened, like you said, which this is all alleged, we're not defaming anyone in the whatever Morgantown Police Department or whatever fucking. But if that's happened, his stature has been reduced a little bit. And I hate, like, his daughter came out with like a bunch of stuff about how the university backstabbed him or whatever. It's the dude fucked up multiple times himself. The story though is, as I understand it, is when the police approached the scene, because you could see there's like a conspiratorial mindset. You could be like, well, they know this guy gets drunk every night. This is the day they chose to pull him over because they were but that's not how it happened, because my understanding is he's on the side of the road, I believe 2 tires shredded, driver door open. Like, this dude is having a problem. And do you remember many years ago Lance Briggs I
remember Lance Briggs, but I don't remember the story you're about to tell about him.
So Lance Briggs had like a Lamborghini that he just left at the scene. He like left it. He abandoned it. Maybe one car accident. He didn't, like, the car didn't run, but Lance Briggs ran. So I think the implication for all of us is it a hit and run? Technically, yes, whatever. It's probably a hit and run in lieu of a DUI. Why do you run away from a car? This is kind of like the Richard Sherman thing a couple years ago, where it's like, it's a DUI. Probably, but I don't know if it technically.
But you can't prove it. Yeah, right. You can't prove it. So I guess he was smart to run. I don't know.
Right. Well, and Bob Huggins. Well, first off, the question is always like, why don't you just get an Uber to begin with? You have millions of dollars, but it's this male competitive ego bullshit that I was talking about a second ago.
That's true.
And yeah. So, anyways, ultimately, good riddance. The dude seems like he's a little bit of a relic, a little bit of a fossil in our modern world, and it sucks that he put people at risk in Morgantown. It's also very funny to me when people like, this dude has fucked up twice, and the expectation is that the university is going to continue to stand behind him in 2023.
Remember about, like, I don't know if you remember this. I know I follow college basketball a little bit more closely than you do, but about 10 years ago or so, when he had like a heart attack on the sidelines.
Oh yeah.
And then speaks to the competitive ego, but rather than just like, he took a short time off, but then he comes back to the sideline, and rather than just take the rest of the season off or whatever, they just put a stool out there where he would normally stand. And so instead of standing, because apparently standing would be the thing that would make his heart bad.
Sure.
He just sits on the stool and does the same amount of yelling and coaching that he did before, but from a seated position rather than standing. That was the way that they were going to solve for this, so that this man could continue coaching. That's what led me to believe what I said at the beginning of the podcast, which is he seems like one of these guys that if he can't coach, he might just pass away.
Sure.
Which, you've seen it with guys like Joe Paterno before. It's like, if they can't do this thing that they're really good at, that they love, then they'll retire and they'll like immediately go away. And that could be in the cards for this man.
Yeah. Could be. I hope not. Even though I think, probably not a good, listen, man, this is, I will say this. I don't feel a lot of sympathy for a person like that losing their job, but I hate, even like I was talking to somebody, Aubrey McClendon. Remember Aubrey McClendon? I felt pretty bad about the way people reacted to him dying, because he committed suicide. He seemed like a very bad guy, hurt a lot of people, still has a family, still has children. Like I hate the idea of risk. This is my most conservative Christian take, is I don't want to fucking, I don't like celebrating the death of anybody. So
when I come to your show on Friday, I should not expect to hear any jokes about the billionaires in the submarine that they're trying to find right now. Do you know about this story?
I am aware of this. I actually thought about putting this on the list. I actually, like, one, no, I won't have one. Two, I might, I might make a joke. I'm not going to celebrate it, but I don't have anything written about it. But I do have a weird thing with that. Like there was a joke recently that became controversial about the Malaysia flight, and it was a great joke, by the way.
The Malaysia flight is like kind of, that's I feel like enough time has passed there where it's
not according to the country of Malaysia, because there was like an international incident because a comedian from Singapore, which they have some rivalry. I don't really understand the history of it. Okay. Yeah. But they anyways, we should get, because we're running out of time a little bit, and I have a hard out, as the show business term, a hard out. Would you like to introduce this topic, or would you like me to introduce this topic?
I think we should
alternate
words. We should do away with our local topic.
Okay, I'm fine.
And just talk about this, because this is This is more important, I feel like.
Yes. By the way, we should just say what the local topic was going to be. There's no Mariners that are going to be voted to the All Star game, and my opinion.
Presumably, yeah.
Well, yeah, that's obviously there's going to be a Mariner in the All Star game. There might be multiple Mariners in the All Star game. They don't vote for pitchers, et cetera, et cetera. They don't deserve it. That's the ultimate deal. Is there's no position that is an obvious. They shouldn't. There's Anyways.
Yeah, my whole thought was you wouldn't even want me voting for them because I vote based on who deserves it, and nobody on the Mariners really deserves it. I know people say, "Oh, Kelenic deserves it," and Kelenic is playing better than he's ever played in his whole career, but he's still not as good as most of the All Stars out there. So.
Sure, he doesn't deserve it. Also, a huge indictment of the entire system is that AJ Pollock has like 120,000 votes. Okay, votes. Yeah. It's a popularity contest.
He's a fan favorite in multiple cities, not here, but other ones. So yeah, people vote for him. Okay, this story is much more interesting than the Mariners sucking, though.
Sure.
This is out of it's out of Lufkin, the town of Lufkin.
Classic. Lufkin story coming up.
Lufkin, Texas, or maybe it's from the Lufkin Daily News, but it's actually out of the town of Nacogdoches.
Thank you,
Stephen F.
Nacogdoches is how it's phonetically.
Yes,
Alex has a thick pronunciation guide next to him, so we know that's right.
Actually a geography major. Not that
nice.
helped me with this, but it could. This story, I feel like. If you're like us and you're on Twitter a lot, you've probably seen this story already. But it's just fun to talk about. The Stephen F. Austin State University assistant bowling coach has chosen to resign rather than be fired after the university discovered that he had an affair with a student athlete. Mm-hmm. That's part of the problem. The bigger problem is that his head coach is also his wife.
Yes.
So he is the assistant to his wife. And a third issue here is that now you would think like college bowling team, not a big deal. Stephen F. Austin is like the Alabama Crimson Tide of bowling, as it turns out. They've won some championships, some national championships, and are a really big deal, I guess, as a result of this. But not such a big deal that this story, it seems like based on this story, it kind of was swept under the rug, and then someone noticed that the assistant coach was just not there anymore. And then as they dug into this a little bit more, the university revealed, oh yeah, this guy just chose to leave. And when they asked why, that really kind of led to some revelations here. So
yes,
I would say this article, the quotes from the guy. So his name is Steve.
The quotes are incredible. If you weren't going to read the quotes, I was going to force us to read the quotes. Yeah, they're so good.
The quotes are the best part. So, I mean, the story starts, the article itself starts pretty innocently enough. I mean, you find out he's got this affair with a student athlete, which, at the college level, there's technically nothing wrong with that. This person is of age, consenting. Both parties are consenting. So, yeah, totally okay to do this. However, he is doing it while married, which is a problem.
Sure.
When they talked to the athletic director at Stephen F. Austin for this, and they simply just said, like, he's not here anymore. He chose to resign. And then they get a hold of Steve Lemke himself to ask him, like, what the hell happened here? And instead of just doing what I think most people would do in this situation and just kind of give the no comment, this man, he goes and attempts to defend himself. I mean, you might think he does it well. Others might think he does it poorly. His wife did not respond to comment for the story, which is probably the right move. Not that she has anything to say. I mean, she's the party here that is being, she's the victim. Yeah, she's the victim, sure. I guess. So this is what Steve Lemke has to say. Quote, I knew it was kind of a no-no, but there's not a rule saying it can't happen. There's not a law saying I'm going to go to jail for doing something like this. There's nothing in stone. I guess it's just an ethics code. Like, we frown upon it, but there's no rule. There's no law broken. And he's right about that, technically. So then he goes on to say the affair with this person was discovered when his wife went through his phone, and that's how it happened. That's probably how it happened for Zion Williamson out there too. And this is what he said about the text that had been exchanged that his wife found. They didn't have anything in detail. It was just about how amazing I am, basically, in general perspective. Amber, his wife, ex-wife, I guess, saw that and questioned me. Yeah, soon-to-be ex-wife. Saw that and questioned me. And I got to the point where it just built up so much that I basically told her the truth after she dug through my phone. I was the stay-at-home dad for 5 years with the kids. while Amber got to go off and coach the team. And when
Can we pause right there? The fact that the Stephen F. Austin head bowling coach team makes enough money to have her husband be a stay-at-home dad is fucking remarkable.
Well, when you're the Nick Saban of college bowling, they have to pay you. This is not just, it's not some scrub.
Have you ever seen how much professional bowlers make? It's not great. You could run a gas station and make more money.
It's not great. It might be below a WNBA salary.
This is the premier job in bowling, is to be the Nick Saban of bowling coaching.
Plus, I don't know a lot about Nacogdoches, Texas, but it's probably not a high cost of living area.
That's true.
College town. So he goes and says, I was the stay-at-home dad for 5 years with the kids, while Amber got to go off and coach the team. And when she'd get back, I'd run practices on top of taking care of the kids while she was back. I don't exactly get how that whole thing works out, but he's rolling here, so we'll just let it keep going. When they'd travel again, I would sit back and take care of the kids. Then when I got hired on, she almost forced me to run practices. I was a volunteer the entire time before that, trying to help out Amber. Once I got hired on, one thing stemmed from another. I felt like I was doing too much for what I was being valued at. That's it. That's all he had to say. So he felt like this sounds more like an employer-employee relationship problem than it does husband and wife, a marital problem. Or at least that's the way he's trying to phrase it. That's his alibi here.
He's making it a labor dispute instead of a marital dispute.
What it seems to be implying is that, usually when you run a college program like this, the head coach has some say over what their assistants make. Now, they could take all the money that is being allotted to this program for themselves if they want to. And maybe that's what Amber did. Might have been because it sounds like he's saying he worked for free, which, I guess if the money's all going to the same household, what difference does it make? Unless she's not giving him any of that money to go out and buy nice things for himself. Maybe she doesn't take him nice places anymore. We don't really know how that dynamic worked out, but apparently it was enough for him to seek relations with not only another woman, but one in his immediate vicinity. A player on the team.
So I will say this: in this article, they don't name the person, which I'm not sure the player, and I actually am not completely. These are all adults involved with this, so the idea that they're omitting it for that person's, these are all people who knew what they were getting into, right? And in the case of a high schooler or something like that, there's an obvious reason to not use this person's name. They did give a detail that makes me feel like I'd be annoyed if I was not that person, which is that the affair, the other person in the affair does not have eligibility left. And you go to this, you can very easily Google the Stephen Austin roster, bowling roster, and look at the seniors and fifth-year seniors and narrow the suspects down pretty quickly and go it's one of 5 people. And listen, I'm not going to say who I think it might be out of these bowlers who I've obviously been following for the last 14 minutes since since
I brought this story to your attention. Yeah.
But it's to me, it's kind of cowardly to give enough detail for us to go find out and spread the blame across 5 people instead of naming the adult that caused this problem. But also, to further our discussion on male competitiveness, in this man's mind, somehow, justice is he gets to return to coach, to be the assistant coach of a team that's being head coached by a woman who he's divorcing, where he's fucked one of the players in the previous year, and this man thinks that what represents justice is him getting to come back and coach that team. And this man is truly a hero, I think.
Well, he seems to be happy.
Yeah.
They don't actually specify whether he and the player are still carrying on their relationship at all.
Sure.
But they do let us know that he is divorcing his wife, the coach, who also appears to be the breadwinner in this family. So this man is going to have to go out and forge his own path at this point. Although maybe this will be one of those situations where he gets child support from her. I don't know. I know he has kids because he complained about the fact that he had to watch them and be their dad. So.
Hey, I have some good news for this podcast. Luckily, I checked my phone during the podcast. My heart out was to speak with a recruiter who just informed me that the job is hybrid in Mississippi. So I think that I don't have a heart out anymore.
So
I will not be moving to Mississippi for this job. I'm going to quickly make a LinkedIn reply, and we can hold on.
You remain unemployed.
And live on the air, I remain unemployed.
If you had a basement that we could move this podcast to, we'd really have it all. A basement, an unemployed guy.
Right. Hold on one second.
Okay, yeah. You finish writing your LinkedIn reply, letting them know that they can just fuck right off.
So okay, and
I found my home run guy. So
okay,
I'm ready. I'm ready to move there if you want to.
Yeah, let's do it, Alex.
Let's do the home run, guys.
We don't need to talk about my thought was we could talk. I want to hear your gripes with the All Star voting process real quick. Is it just?
Yeah. So getting back to that topic, I want them to bring back the paper ballots that you can fill out in the stadium.
You are an election denier that thinks that we need to go no more electronic voting, no more advanced voting, no more mail-in ballots, all
paper
ballots. Count all the legal votes.
I want to punch the hole. I want to punch the little holes. You know,
we're not worried about hanging chads anymore.
When you would go to games as a kid and it was like all-star voting time, there was nothing better than like you walk in to the stadium, you see that big old box there with the ballots in it, and you take your little grubby kid hand that's covered in sugar and shit.
Oh yeah.
And you just grab like way too many of those ballots, way more than you need. Like,
yeah.
I'm gonna fill all these out in my seat during the game, and if you were lucky, one of your parents had like a pen or a pencil on them, something that with a sharp, easy point to make the hole there. Otherwise, you had to use your finger, which was not equipped for poking those holes very well. That was fun. I enjoyed that process. And now it's even just to go complete the voting process, you have to like log into an account, your MLB account. You have to fill out some info. It's a pain in the ass. We do enough in front of our computers as it is. If you want to plus, here's the other thing. There's an accessibility issue, right? Like Toronto Blue Jays every year now have the most votes. All their players, even when they have shit, like last year, Santiago Espinal is voted to the All-Star game. If you don't know Santiago Espinal, you shouldn't. But he was an all-star last year because all of Canada votes for just the Blue Jays because they can do that online and they can just spam
foreign interference in our election is what you're
once again
alleging.
Yes. And if you are doing the paper ballots, I remember not only did they have the paper ballots at the games, but you would go to some grocery stores and they would have some all-star ballots there. So maybe you go to the grocery store with your parents and you're walking around the store, you're filling out one of those ballots too. But here's the thing about that process. I get it's not scientific. It's not available to everybody. You have to have some desire to go fill out these ballots. But what you're doing is you're catering it to the people who have the most insight about baseball, right? Now it's like every team on social media can just be like, hey, go fill out these ballots online. Fill out as many as you can. Show us that you did it. And we'll enter you into some drawing, right? Before it was like you were just doing this for the love of punching out those tiny little paper holes, the satisfaction that triggered some OCD in you or something, and you just enjoyed that. And
I have a story for you, Alex. I was in a comedy contest many years ago. It was the first time my in-laws saw me do comedy, and I had a very good set. And the way the voting worked is you send a text message. And so my family that's there, my now family, my in-laws, they vote for me. My wife votes for me. We get to the end of the contest, and I've told the story on other podcasts. The person who did it knows we're cool now. I come up, I'm second place in this contest. And by the way, it's like a preliminary round. It's just to go to the next round. So second place also advances to the next round. Not a big deal. But it would have been nice for the first time my in-laws see me do comedy where I do pretty well, and comedy's not something that they're just inherently in love with me doing, that I win this contest, right?
Yeah.
I take second place. The person who wins first place mysteriously has more votes than there are people in attendance at this show. And what had happened was she had posted on social media, vote for me, this is the number. And then another person who was live streaming on Twitch at that exact moment with like hundreds of viewers said, oh, my friend so-and-so is in this comedy contest. You can make her win by texting this number. She admits to it. It all gets, but I don't get the glory of having my parents or my in-laws see me win this contest. And they've never loved my comedy since. That we could have had a whole different thing. Actually, they will be.
Election.
They will be in attendance on Sunday, and hopefully they don't. By the way, June 25th, I'm headlining Tacoma Comedy Club. I'm there all weekend. Friday Late Show did get canceled. I don't know if we talked about that on the last one. Now it's just Sunday that I'm headlining, so come on out. It actually sounds like it's filling up pretty decently. Alex will be there on comp tickets. I'm going to have a fair amount of
Apparently, I'm going to the early show because there is only.
Oh, you changed to Friday?
Oh, I thought I was going to Friday. What day am I supposed to? Oh, Sunday. No, it is.
Yeah.
You're right. It is Sunday.
Okay, yeah, it's been Sunday the whole time until I got a Friday show added and then canceled within a week of each other. So, anyways, come see that. And now let's play our home run game. If you'd like to, would you like to go first? It sounds like you had zeroed in on one.
I have a good one for you today. I decided to go. This has been working for me, so I'm just going to keep going with Hall of Famers.
Okay. I think I might have a Hall of Famer for you too, actually.
Yeah, Hall of Famers that could be tough to identify. And today's one of the most recognizable baseball players in the history of the game, Cal Ripken Jr.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah, that is. I think it is a good one. I think it's a tough one because it's not like he wasn't really a known power hitter.
Well, that's kind of a misnomer because at the beginning of his career, he was like the prototype power hitting shortstop. He was
he was big. He was A-Rod size. He's listed at 6'4", 200 pounds. So he's a big dude. Obviously very big for a shortstop.
Yep.
Played some third base there as well. The easy thing with Ripken is he played every game for the vast majority of his career. So you already have that part figured out. So this one I would think might be a little bit easier just because of that. So he plays 21 years in the game. Obviously he has that incredible Iron Man streak that at this point will probably never ever be broken.
Yeah.
Plays so many consecutive games. So 21 years. I'm not going to say anything else. You know what you need to know about Cal Ripken, and now I need a number from you.
So he is like for his time a power hitting shortstop, but it's at a time when shortstops are, mostly single digit home run guys, glove only guys, built like a left fielder or a third baseman playing shortstop, notable for his time. But like you said, he also doesn't play most of his career, I believe, in the bandbox that is Camden Yards. I think he played in whatever the stadium that preceded Camden Yards. And so my suspicion is that his top home run season is probably around 25 home runs. But I'd bet that he's low double digits in most seasons, 21 years. Let's say there's 19 of those that are essentially full seasons. I'm going to put Cal Ripken's home run total, but he's just played so many years and for so long. I'm going to say 287 home runs.
Wow. This is bad.
Fuck me. No.
I didn't. The way you were going through the process, I was like, "Oh, you're gonna hit it," because your numbers were more or less right on until you got to the final number. His final number is 431 home runs.
God damn.
287.
I just felt like I didn't think he had reached that big 400 plateau.
That's a little over 150 off, I believe. Yeah, no, he
brutal.
You were right.
Brutal.
You were right about his numbers. I mean, he was most of his career he was in the 20s. His high water mark was 34 home runs in 1991. Okay. But the early part of his career, the part that you and I probably don't remember at all because we were barely alive for it, from 82 to 88, he's like 28, 27, 27, 26, 25, 27.
God damn, that's pretty good. That's definitely where I'm missing then because I think
right. The parts we remember through the 90s and into the 2000s, typically he's kind of going anywhere between his low number was 13 and 94, up to that 34 and 91, but he's typically in like the high teens, low 20s, which is kind of the number you were looking at.
Yeah.
And you were right. I mean, he basically plays full seasons in all but 4 of those 21 years. So 17 are, pretty much full seasons. There's the strike year of 94, which obviously changes things, and then the partial season of 95 coming off the strike. But other than that, I mean, he played in every game, so that kind of helps things. But a little bit, I was kind of surprised to see that number too. I didn't think he was as big of a home run hitter. I think it was more just the longevity of his career, and then the early part, the 80s, where he really he really crushed the ball.
All right, I got to piss again. I'm sorry to do this on the podcast, but we'll edit it.
Yeah.
All right, another remarkably fast piss.
The interesting thing about you taking a leak while we're recording is that if you didn't edit it out, everyone would be able to hear your piss because you are loud.
Yeah. Well, last week you commented on the speed, but I think I've proven the strength of stream.
High velocity, high volume.
Yes. I'm a little better now, and I don't know why, but my friend used to accuse me of having a tiny bladder, and that might be somewhat true, but I also would put the volume that I piss in a day against anybody in the world. I swear to God, I could fill like a couple gallons of like a couple gallon jugs.
You stay hydrated. That's good. That's an important thing for people to do.
And just an intense amount of caffeine, just a life altering amount of caffeine every day.
Through you quick. It can go through you very quick.
Yeah.
So you're off by a little bit.
Yeah,
a little bit of a cushion today.
Rough draw. I have a guy from a similar era on a similar team, which makes me slightly worried. I suspect he crossed over with Cal Ripken quite a bit. He is Eddie Murray. We talked about Eddie Murphy earlier.
Eddie Murray, yeah.
I feel like Eddie Murray is a guy, so he played 21 seasons also, 1977 to 1997.
Yeah.
A guy who I just feel like was around for my entire childhood, who similar to Cal Ripken Jr., where he was just always there. He was just like, I felt like he was, Julio Franco was another guy. You're like, this guy's never going to stop playing.
Yeah, he was one of those guys that I think for us, especially for me growing up in the 90s, you didn't think of him as being a Hall of Fame baseball player until his career was over, and then you looked at all of his numbers and you're like, oh, that guy's definitely a Hall of Famer. But I think it's just like Ripken, a lot of his best years were before you and I were able to even watch him play.
Right. So he plays in Baltimore, plays for the Dodgers in at least two different stints, plays for Cleveland, which is actually where my like most burnt in memories are of him. Plays for the Mets and plays for Anaheim for part of a season.
Yeah. He kind of carried on a little too long, I think, if I remember correctly. Towards the end, he wasn't super productive, but he was Hall of Famer Eddie Murray, so teams were going to give him a chance regardless. Yeah.
And I'll give you, so he wins Rookie of the Year in 1977. And then, well, I guess I'll give you the superlatives after you make what is hopefully a very inaccurate guess.
Well, I don't even know if I'm going to go through the process on this one. I know enough about Eddie Murray to know that part of the reason he even got into the Hall of Fame is because I believe he had over 500 home runs. And that really narrows my window down to about 100 home runs because I don't think he went over 600. Maybe he did, but I'm pretty sure it's in the 500 range somewhere. You said he played 20 seasons?
21 seasons.
21 seasons. He was a pretty big home run hitter. So, I mean, if he played 21 full seasons, if he played 21 seasons and hit on average like 30 a year, that in and of itself right there is right around 600 home runs. So I know he's in the 500 range. I'm going to say, I know I have a cushion of 150 to work with thanks to you. So that helps. That helps a little bit. I'm going to say 530 home runs.
Well, it could have been worse. It's 504 home runs, so 26 off. I'm going to tell you, though, because my like honest baseball viewership probably starts like that I can remember in like the early 90s, 91, maybe 92.
Yeah.
And so Eddie Murray from 1977 when he wins Rookie of the Year, so the years that follow that, he gets MVP votes in the next 8 seasons.
Wow.
He never wins an MVP, but he was, and this is, by the way, like a time when they didn't care that he was like a first base DH. Oh, I don't even think he's a DH at that point, but I guess he was a DH for a big chunk of that, but he's first base DH only for essentially his entire career. I actually would have assumed that he would have played at a different position at some point. But also those numbers that he was putting up, like in 1981, 22 home runs, I believe, led the American League.
Yeah.
Wait, is that a strike shortened season or something like that? How the hell did that even happen?
It could be. I mean, it was different in the 80s. They weren't hitting home runs like they were today. But
so it must be a strike shortened season because it's 109 games. There was 4 guys tied with 22 home runs, and he was one of them.
Yeah, I mean, his career, like we were saying just a minute ago, I mean, I never thought of him as being a great baseball player. Because by the time, he hung around for so long that by the time you and I were watching him, he was already, past his prime, really.
Yeah.
And at that point, he was kind of bouncing around to different teams. I should have gone even lower on the home run number because I kind of remember around when his Hall of Fame candidacy came about. I'm pretty sure he wasn't a first ballot guy. But he was one of those guys who was speculative. I mean, it was one of those like, should he or shouldn't he get in?
Yeah, he's a little bit of like the Eli Manning of baseball, where it's like he was around so long that he accumulated these milestones, but maybe was never like the true elite player that. But I mean, he was like never wins an MVP, but he's like top 5 a bunch of times.
He was first ballot, and it looks like he got 85% of the vote first ballot.
Pretty good.
So. But I think, again, the thing about him that I remember people discussing was that home run number. That's why I knew 500. When I think of like when we always talk about this with this game, 500 is the magic number to be a Hall of Famer.
Right.
And Eddie Murray, in my mind, is the guy that personifies that because I knew he was like, it always felt like he was like on the cusp of not being a Hall of Famer, but he had the requisite numbers. He had the 500 home runs that you need to be enshrinement in the Hall of Fame, and he apparently just barely squeaked it by. Maybe that's why he was hanging around so long, so you get over 500.
I will say, so of course the analytics numbers are a little convoluted when you get into the years that predate like StatCast and all the TrackMan stuff, but he was, by Baseball Reference, a 68 wins above replacement player. And by Fangraphs, who's probably typically a little more critical of like defensive value, a 72 wins above replacement player. So a guy who's a legit Hall of Famer, even without that, like, but I think it's really tough for you and I, who grew up in this like kind of transition era of baseball where it went from this pitcher's game where a guy that's hitting 30 home runs a year could be worth almost 7 wins a season through stretches, to this, the Griffey, Sammy Sosa, Mark McGwire, Rafael Palmeiro, Barry Bonds, Juan Gonzalez, Alex Rodriguez, these like home run records that are being crushed over time. Yeah. We saw so many home run records get broken that by so many people in multiple seasons that it's just weird to imagine that a 30 home run first baseman was like one of the best players in baseball in the 70s,
Yeah, I think that maybe a comparison, this might not be a totally fair comparison, but you and I think of Albert Pujols as like a sure thing first ballot Hall of Famer, right?
Sure.
But if you think about the last 10 years of Albert Pujols' career,
in his 50s.
If you were some kid, I saw him playing the NBA All Star Celebrity Game this past year, and that man went from professional athlete to retired professional athlete faster than anybody I ever seen. You put that man in a basketball tank top, and you at first I was like, who is that guy? And then I was like, oh, that's Albert Pujols. Man, he just retired. What happened? Anyway, if you only saw him growing up, if you're some teenager that's really only has memories of the last few years of his career, you probably wonder why people think of him as a sure thing first ballot Hall of Famer. And for the generation above us, the people that actually voted Eddie Murray into the Hall of Fame, that saw his best years, they know for a fact how good he was, and we never saw that. So maybe that's kind of a similar comparison. It's there are players like that they appeal to certain generations, and in their later years they don't appeal to others simply because they don't continue that performance. And Eddie just hung around, man. He just hung around and got those numbers up.
Yeah,
did what he had to do.
I want to give you this stat because it's crazy. Okay, so this is gonna be. Oh man, this is not okay. So wins above replacement for Albert Pujols. He spends 12 years total in St. Louis, including a return in 2022. Spends 10 years with the Angels and 1 partial year with the Dodgers. If you could you guess for me his wins above replacement with the Angels and the Dodgers? And the Cardinals, like both of those numbers.
How it splits?
Yeah, let me give you his total. I'll give you his total wins above replacement. His total wins above replacement for his career are, come on now, it's 101.5.
Okay, and how many years did he play for each? So you said 10 in the second half.
10 with the Angels, 12 with St. Louis, and then one with the Dodgers. And let's subtract the Dodgers numbers if I can do it pretty quickly. It's he was worth negative negative 0.2 with the Dodgers.
He was probably like, I don't know, 75 with the Cardinals, and then the balance after that. That's what I would think.
So this is a little confusing because I can't get the exact Okay. I think I have it now. Okay. It's 88.8 with the Cardinals, and in 10 years with the Angels, 12.8 wins above replacement.
Wow. Yeah, I mean that's a perfect comparison then. I mean, clearly, like if you only had memories of him as an Angel, you're like, this guy, he's okay.
Yeah,
but he's not that good. I mean, he was barely. So he had. You said how much with the Angels total in 10 years?
12.8.
12.8 in 10 years, so he's barely 1 win above replacement. Not
a league average player on average. 2 wins is about a league average player.
So if your memories of him only come about from the Angels on, I mean, you would think people who thought of him as a first ballot Hall of Famer is crazy. Yeah, having never seen that first part of his career, and it's funny how just a few good years early on can really carry an entire career like that. But it's like winning. It's like being a quarterback that wins a Super Bowl once.
Yep.
Russell Wilson.
Well, it's also one interesting thing is that his son AJ Pujols, who was a college golfer, is now like in the college golf, or I mean the YouTube golf space, which is something that I'm aware of because of my channel Road Hacks, which you could find on YouTube right now. But also, what's amazing to imagine about Albert Pujols, and I'm going to get some exact numbers on this, but he played, let me see in the minors. Oh, he didn't play any of the minors. I thought that he played a game at shortstop for the Cardinals, which is insane to imagine Albert Pujols now, and then the fact that he played shortstop at any point.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when he came up. He kind of came up. He came up the same year as Ichiro, 2001. I think he was the NL Rookie of the Year when Ichiro won the AL Rookie of the Year, and he came up as like a third baseman, left fielder, occasional first baseman, kind of like a super sub, which even back then wasn't too common of a thing that you saw. Yeah, and he was playing all these different positions. He was a much thinner man back then, but he wasn't like one of those guys. He kind of came out of nowhere. It wasn't like he was the number 1 prospect in baseball or anything like that. He kind of made a quick leap, it felt like, from the minors to the majors, and then just took the world by storm, man. And
so we're crossing him off the home run game list, but I want you to guess his home runs.
Who? Oh, Pujols? Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's.
And then we gotta end the podcast for the sake of the listeners. I might have to keep the part where I peed in just to.
Well, I think he might have even gone over 600. I'll say 602.
703.
Wow, that's crazy.
I know. This is what I'm saying. We're just so jaded on these home run numbers now.
If a few months back you saw him in a basketball jersey like I did, You would never think that man was capable of hitting 703 home runs.
All right. All right. Release the tapes. That's what I have to say to end it. I think that's going to be the name of the. We're going to break the 2-word nomenclature naming convention, and we're gonna call it release the tapes.
That's perfect.